Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, January 21st, 2023. And our top story today, it's Secure Saturday. Today we'll be talking about potential for technical corrections, the RMD and Roth rules. And joining me now to kick off this inaugural episode, David Levine, Kevin Walsh. Both are principals with Groom Law Group. That's an employee benefits law firm based in Washington, D.C. Legal Eagles, David, Kevin, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks for having us on, Jeff. It's a great new series you're launching because Secure's got a whole lot in it, and it's going to make a big difference for retirement savers in the upcoming years. Thanks,
Kevin. David, I want to come to you first because I want to ask you, before we get into some of the provisions we're going to talk about this morning, I want to ask you about possible, what are you hearing about possible technical corrections for Secure 2.0?
Absolutely, Jeff. That's a great question. You finish a bill, you start the new one, I guess is the logic here. The very basics of this is there are some provisions of Secure 2.0 where people have questions. Who does it apply to? What are the effective dates? Little pieces like that. We could spend a whole bunch of weedy time in the weeds, but the short answer is there are already discussions beginning about how do you clarify certain things, like when does the RMD age that's going to take effect in 10 years apply? Kevin will talk about that. But it's those things. There's a chance, I think Congress has exhausted its firepower for the moment, or not firepower, energy on retirement for the time being. But there's a real chance that there'll be some little cleanup types of things done in 2023. So that's the basics at this point.
All right, Kevin, let's come to you. David teed it up perfectly for you. Let's talk RMDs today. We're going to talk about a couple of the provisions. There are over 90. What do you have for us in terms of, what do we need to know, I should say, if you're a plan sponsor or an individual about required minimum distributions, also known as RMDs?
And Jeff, thanks for going there. I mean, I think it's important that we get to brass tacks instead of talking about, pie in the sky, Secure 3.0, Secure 4.0, whatever David Levine wants to talk about here. So I appreciate that we're grounding it in what the changes in the law actually are. So what Secure 2.0 did, though, was it made some significant changes to required minimum distributions. And required minimum distributions are, they're the money that individuals are forced to take out of retirement plans once they reach a certain age. And the reason generally that folks are required to take money out of retirement plans when they get to a certain age is because if the money stays in the plan, it's not taxed. And then once it starts coming out of the plan, it's taxed. And so it's important from a government revenue standpoint that the money is required to start coming out at some point, particularly as they want these 401k plans to be used for retirement savings and not simply as a way to store money in a tax-free environment. Secure 2.0 made three pretty significant changes to the RMD rules. The first of them is it increases the age that someone's required to take an RMD. So prior to the Secure 2.0, individuals were required to take money out of their retirement plans in the calendar year after they'd attained 72 years of age. So 72-year-olds were generally required to start taking required minimum distributions. Starting this year, essentially, if you turn 73, you're going to be required to start taking minimum distributions. So it's gone from 72 to 73. And then as David highlighted, there's a little bit of ambiguity. So I'm going to leave it as, and 10 years after enactment, it's going to get ratcheted up to 75 for when individuals are required to start taking required minimum distributions. Ultimately, the idea behind increasing the age that someone's required to take minimum distributions is that if someone has a smaller nest egg, or if someone works longer, requiring someone to start taking money out later, it decreases the likelihood that they're going to run out of money in retirement. So these are positive changes in terms of allowing folks, if you want to take a distribution before then, you can. But if due to your financial situation or due to your work situation, you don't need to take distributions, it allows you to defer to a later date. So I'll very quickly hit on the last two changes because I don't want to use up too much time here. And so what it also does is it enhances the use of commercial annuities when you're taking RMDs. So one of the issues that we've seen around, in-plan annuity offerings and around annuities in general has been, some, not great intersection of the RMD rules and the operation of annuities. And Secure 2.0 makes some changes to go into that. It's kind of complicated, so I don't think we'll go into more detail in this segment. And the last thing that it does is, there's folks who miss taking their required minimum distributions for a variety of reasons, whether they're missing, whether they just didn't realize they needed to take a distribution or some other reason. And prior to Secure 2.0, there was a 50% excise tax on the missed distribution. Now, with Secure 2.0, that's reduced to 25%, so a smaller tax on people who, forget to take retirement savings out when they're required to take it. And then in some limited circumstances, that excise tax to be reduced to 10%. In short, it seems like what Congress is focused on with Secure 2.0 with respect to RMDs was, making sure that people can leave the money in the plan maybe a little bit longer and, penalizing folks less for failing to take money out and for protecting their nest egg.
Well, thanks for that, Kevin. And David, it sounds like this, you talked earlier about possible technical corrections for lack of a more clear term. This is an area where there could be some clarification as well, in the language and the law.
Absolutely. You're spot on, Jeff.
All right, David, let's talk a little bit about the Roth provisions, what the Secure Act does to Roth and what that means for employers, employees, all the above, all of us.
Great. Well, I'm going to talk about a couple different things very quickly on Roth. First of all, the first bucket is for people between age 60 and 63. There is an increased limit on catch-up contributions at this point. So I want to note that as a side. I'm just going to introduce that because it then comes into Roth, because here's what happens, and that's going to have a lot of interest probably from people. But Congress at this point has changed up how catch-up contributions work going forward. As a revenue raiser, as we've talked many times with you every week when we talk with you as the Legal Eagles, one of the discussions that comes up is Congress tries to find ways, oftentimes, to pay for legislation. One of the ways that they can do generation of revenue is Roth contributions, because Roth money is taxed when it goes in, which is current revenue, but the non-taxability of the Roth and the earnings is usually way in the future. A lot of it's more than 10 years out. So it doesn't get counted for budget purposes. Why is this relevant? In Secure 2.0, there's a revenue raiser in there saying that catch-up contributions need to be done on a Roth basis starting next year. And for people who have in their plans Roth contributions already, they may say, oh, well, that's pretty easy. For people who have Roth, they'll just keep going as Roth as the catch-up and no change. There are still a good number of people who have pre-tax contributions that they do, and then they go pre-tax catch-up. That won't be allowed. So there's a real question with the record keepers about updating systems to make sure people fall over. Plus, you're not required to be Roth catch-up unless you have over $145,000 of income in the prior year. So there's all these sort of like tests and ways to make this operate to make it work. Similarly, there's the question of so-called spillovers. A good number of plans, and the IRS has blessed this, allow you to make one election where you say, I'm going to elect to defer 60% of my salary or 25% of my salary. And when you hit the regular limit, it automatically spills over into into catch-up. The problem is if you're doing pre-tax now and it converts to Roth once you get to catch-up, there will be some systematic things that need to be worked out. So people are immediately diving on this because, as both you and Kevin know, our industry is not one that easily moves on a dime on computer programming. So it's going to take some time. Similarly, this applies across 401k plans, 403b, and 457s. 403b and 457s are often governmental or tax exempt, but Roth is not as widely adopted necessarily in some of these plans. And we have clients who don't have Roth 401k, and that happens. So if they want to keep catch-up starting in 2024, a lot of sponsors who don't have it are going to have to say, do I add Roth everywhere? How am I going to do this? And there's a lot of questions to be resolved. For instance, could you have Roth-only catch-ups? It isn't clear whether you can. But these are things that I know people will be talking to the IRS. I know we'll be talking to the IRS about this. And similarly, it is systems and sponsor side as we look forward. So that's a couple examples right there.
Well, gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there. Great inaugural edition of Secure Saturdays, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon. When we come back, we'll take a look at our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. This week we discussed how social media affects youth's brain development. Let's take a look.
Yeah, so what we found is two different trajectories of brain development associated with differences in how often somebody checks social media at a young age. So they were different at the start of the study, which is interesting because that kind of suggests to us that this might be starting even earlier than we were. So kids that were about 12, 13 filled out some surveys indicating how much they check social media a day. And kids that checked more often or more habitually started out lower in their brain's sensitivity to social feedback and increased over time, which we tracked over a year. So two different brain scans showed increased activation in areas in their brain that were associated with processing of social feedback. And the other group that was moderate to low checking started out higher in social sensitivity and decreased over time. So we saw two different distinct paths of brain development associated with different social media behaviors, brain looking different a year later. And we can't really say what that means yet. We didn't look at any outcomes. That will be a really important direction for future studies. But this is really just showing us that however somebody uses social media or how often they check it, might be associated with a different path of brain development. Adolescence is a critical period of brain development. Things are changing. The brain is adapting to its environment to be able to better navigate it. And social information is particularly important in adolescence. It's really important to developmental tasks like identity processing. And so adolescents are wired to value social information above all else and sort of move away from, valuing parents and more into peers, which makes sense because we've seen this for decades and how much adolescents value their friendships and spend time pay attention to stuff going on with their peers. So what we're seeing is like kids who are checking social media more often their brains are getting more sensitive they're activating more when they're anticipating social feedback. So I guess whatever rewards and punishments, this is something that we, kind of offers a possible explanation for our results, is that looking for likes, comments, whatever they're getting, that's socially rewarding or punishing is sort of causing their brain to become more attuned to that and become more sensitive. The decrease on the other group may be more developmentally normative. But yeah, we're just going to have to do some more studies and further explain that. So we looked at the top 3 popular social media platforms at the time that we collected the data. So kids endorsed most popular Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and we added up the number of times that they said that they checked each platform to like a total score of checking social media. So we didn't really focus in on differences between the platforms. And a reason for that is how rapidly technology changes. We want to make sure that we're keep making our research as relevant and generalizable as possible, because platforms fall in and out of favor. Like teens actually are really not using Facebook as much anymore. And this is before TikTok, right? And TikTok is huge. But because we looked at the behavior of social media checking, like how often they looked for an update, we can kind of extend that behavior and consider that, going forward, even though the digital landscape is already super different from when it was when we collected this data. We didn't look at blue light in our study. We focused on the habitual checking behavior. And our research group hasn't looked at blue light specifically. However, in this area of social media research, something that we're seeing come up a lot is just the amount of sleep that teens are getting. And, if they're checking social media a lot, like we didn't account for when that's happening. So like, are they doing it a lot at night? Is it keeping them from going to bed? Are they waking up in the middle of the night and checking it? Because those are all like nuances and variations on the behavior that are probably really important and would result in differences. But that's just something that we would need to study in the future. As far as blue light, like I can't really speak to blue light specifically, but social media and technology can interrupt or influence sleep patterns in a lot of different ways. And so checking, I think, could do that. So looking more specifically at that in the future will be important. And sorry, I was going to say, like, parents ask a lot of times people will ask me, like, what would you tell parents and policymakers or educators? And I think sleep is one of the biggest targets that is like easy to set a limit on. Like, no, like cutting off phone at bedtime at some point, just so kids, can protect their sleep integrity a little bit.
And we also discussed starting to pay down that holiday credit card debt. Let's take a look.
I often say credit's a financial tool. Debt can become the financial problem. Credit, when you use it well, can be used to your financial advantage. You can have credit, not carry debt. And that's something people don't think about. So if you have a credit card and you pay that balance in full each month and you get cash back or discounts on purchases or other incentives, that could be a financial advantage for you. And your credit report and therefore your credit score play a big part in that. Credit scores represent the information in your credit report and the likelihood that you'll repay a debt is agreed. So lenders use credit scores to help them evaluate whether you'll pay them back or not. That's critical because it helps them determine the interest rates they'll charge, the fees that you may have to pay, deposits, those sorts of things with credit arrangements. So having a good credit score will save you money in the long term. It also empowers you to negotiate with your lenders. So if you're talking about holiday debt today, if you're carrying holiday debt, you have a credit card with high interest rates. If you have strong credit scores, that empowers you to go back to the lender and say, look, I'll manage my credit well. You can look at my credit history. My credit score show I'll pay you back. Give me a better interest rate. And they may well do that. So it gives you bargaining power to have a good credit score. It lets you walk into the lender and say, give me what I want because I know I meet the criteria that you have. The average interest rates on credit cards have been creeping up. They're around 17% right now, something like that. If you have good credit scores, it never hurts to ask. Even if you don't, it never hurts to ask. The worst they'll do is say, no, you need to continue paying on that account. So good credit scores let you walk in and say, look, instead of that 17%, can you give me something less? And if they do, that lowers your monthly payment, helps you repay that debt, helps you stay in control of your finances. And that's what we want, is people to control their money, not have their money control them. It's getting more difficult. There are fewer of those kinds of offers out there, but they still exist. So lenders may offer introductory rates and they offer a 0% interest rate for 6 months or a year. One of the ways you might take advantage of that is if you subscribe to, for example, Experian's free services, we will help match you to credit cards that may offer those best rates or better terms for you. Do that at Experian.com. I always have to plug our company, and we do. But we do help match people to the cards that will help them. So take advantage of tools like that. One of the things that I always caution, though, is if you get what they call an introductory rate, it will expire. And if you haven't repaid the debt on that card, the interest rate could be accruing, and suddenly you'll face much higher payments and a much higher debt. So if you do transfer your fees or transfer your balances, make sure you understand the terms when you do that. When do they have to be paid back? What are the consequences if you don't? If you use that card for other purchases, does that affect that rate? Make sure you always understand the terms of the contract you're agreeing to, but they're out there and could be an advantage. A personal loan typically is an unsecured loan. The idea is you take out a personal loan at a lower interest rate. It's an installment loan rather than a credit card with a revolving account. Pay off your credit card debts, and then you have a lower payment to pay off that installment loan. The risk is that you can be tempted then to use those credit cards because now they have a zero balance. And you have to be sure that you have a plan and that you don't fall victim to that temptation. So if you pay off those accounts with a consolidation loan or a personal loan, pay that loan off, great plan, if you stick to the plan. If you don't and you take on more debt, you'll find yourself in more problems. I would advise talk to an accountant or your financial advisor. Changing your withholding rates, using that refund if you get one to help pay down debts can be another strategy. There are other things you can do as well. Automate mind, get it done. Make sure that you're taking advantage of offers for the best terms and rates. Make sure that you are staying on top of your credit history. Monitor that credit report, improve that credit score, because that's going to help you improve your terms overall. And take advantage of tools like Experian Boost that helps you that enables you to report your utility payments, your cell phone payments, your streaming services to boost that credit score. Just go to Experian.com/boost. It's a free service. Anything you can do to strengthen your financial health and well-being and what lenders see will help you address those debts that we're facing coming off of the holidays.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? We'll visit our website and our over 300 streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for BRN Sunday. We'll be breaking down the top news for the week and a multitude of topics. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.